Google Ads clicks are getting more expensive, but some Shopify brands are scaling faster than ever. After managing hundreds of Google Ads accounts over the last 10 years, I've noticed the winners all rely on the same new method that most advertisers completely ignore. So in this video, I'll break down exactly what they're doing differently and how Google Ads actually works now. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Once you see what Google Ads actually is at its core, you'll realize most advertisers are fighting the rules instead of playing the new game. Google Ads came from a very simple idea. Google had attention and businesses wanted to access it, and the fairest way to decide who shows up was an auction. Every time someone searches, Google runs a lightning fast auction behind the scenes to decide which ads appear and in what order. The important part is this: Google doesn't care about your margins, your ROAS targets, or how you feel about the cost per click. The system is designed to reward the advertiser who can make the most money for a click over time. And that's where most people get tripped up. They think the auction is about who bids the most at the moment, when it's really about who can afford to stay in the auction the longest. And the dangerous part is that the auction only ever shows you the last visible outcome, not all the work that made the outcome possible. And that distinction matters, because once you see how the auction really works, a lot of common sense Google Ads advice stops making sense. And later in the video, I'll show you why the ads that look like they're winning aren't always the real alphas. This next part is subtle, but a simple part most marketers skip. It prevents them from doing the method that top brands use. It also explains why so many Shopify brands turn off the exact Google Ads that actually do the real work. My family had visitors the other day, and my wife spent the entire morning cleaning the house. She vacuumed, did the dishes, cleaned up kids' messes, and handled all the unglamorous stuff that makes a place clean. I didn't do anything as I was working. And then right before people arrived, I lit a candle. Someone walked in and said, "Wow, it smells amazing in here." And of course, I accepted the compliment, not for the person who actually cleaned the house, but for the candle. And that's exactly how Google Ads attribution works by default. The candle does nothing to clean the house, but it gets all the credit. In most Google Ads accounts, any click that doesn't lead directly to a purchase gets ignored. No sale means no credit. But those early clicks can be the ones that introduce the brand, answer questions, set up the purchase later so you actually scale. They do the real cleaning before anyone is paying attention. This is why unbranded and branded campaigns behave so differently. Unbranded ads usually show up early in the journey. They educate people, create awareness, and warm them up. Branded ads show up at the end when the customer already knows what they want and just need a quick path to buy from your brand. Because branded ads are typically the last click before the purchase, they end up getting all the credit, even though they're mostly capturing demand that was created earlier. The single best way to fix this is to use data-driven attribution on your purchase conversion. This makes Google use real data from your account to model how different interactions contribute to the sale over time. It's not perfect, but it's way better than last click. So how do you do this? Just go into Google Ads, open Tools and Conversions, click on your purchase conversion, then set the attribution model to data-driven. Then let it run for a few weeks before making major budget decisions. That's it. You don't need to rebuild your campaigns or change your structure. You just need a better way to judge what's actually working. But even if you fix your data, that won't help you scale if you don't do this next part of the method. There's a simple reason some brands can spend so much money on ads while yours don't even appear on the first page. This is where that shift actually starts to make sense. And it clicked for me in a place I didn't expect. One of the first Google Ads I ran for a Shopify store was for a small plant business. After a few months of ads, it looked like a terrible idea to continue. The clicks were expensive, and most people didn't even buy the plants that were in the ads. If you judged it purely by last click logic, the ads looked like they were failing. But something fascinating happened. People would click an ad for a plant or a plant set, browse around, and leave. And weeks later, those same people would come back asking for help designing a whole office plan with an ongoing maintenance service so everything stayed alive. The plants in the ads weren't the real product. They were just the entry point into something much more valuable. This led me to bid bigger on single clicks and lead the auction in top places. That's when it clicked for me. The business who can afford to pay more per click than anyone else scales the most. The real value wasn't in the item being advertised, it's the value of the customer. High costs per click aren't the problem. They're simply the price of access to get to the right customers. And that's why some brands can keep spending while others disappear. And this is the mindset shift behind what I call auction alpha. Instead of being afraid of rising CPCs, you understand when and why you can actually afford to be the alpha. At its simplest, ROAS is just average order value multiplied by conversion rate, divided by cost per click. If your AOV and conversion rate are strong enough, you can remain profitable even as CPCs go up, while other advertisers are forced out of the auction. And that's why the strongest advertisers aren't trying to win by being cheap. They're comfortable staying in expensive auctions because they remain profitable. But here's the part most people miss. This formula quietly assumes that every click either buys or disappears forever. In reality, most people don't buy the first time. They click, they look around, and they leave. The formula is missing the one lever that lets you get far more value out of the same clicks without paying more for them. So keep watching until the end, because once you add that one lever, the economics of the auction change completely. If CPC is largely set by the auction, what can you actually control? The fastest and most reliable lever is conversion rate, because every small improvement here instantly increases how much you can afford to pay for a click. And this is where a lot of Shopify brands quietly lose auctions they should be winning. They send traffic to product pages that were never designed to convert cold traffic, especially from shopping or non-branded search ads. A product page that works for returning customers often underperforms for first-time visitors. At a minimum, shopping ads need a clean, fast product page with a clear value proposition above the fold, social proof close to the call to action, and objections answered. In some cases, the bigger unlock is sending traffic to a dedicated landing page instead of a standard product page, especially when the search intent is broader or more educational. The core elements don't need to be complicated. You want a clear headline that matches the promise of the ad, a strong visual that shows the product in use, a short explanation of who it's for and who it's not for, trust signals that reduce hesitation. One of the easiest wins here is adding payments. Adding PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay does two things at once. It increases trust and it removes friction for people who don't want to go find their card. In most accounts, this alone drives roughly a 10 to 15% lift in conversion rate, and it's something you can implement in minutes inside Shopify. When conversion rates improve, the entire auction shifts in your favor without you paying more per click. But there's another lever that quietly multiplies the performance of every ad you run. Once the conversion rate is solid, the next lever is average order value. AOV directly multiplies everything in the formula. This is where brands with similar traffic and similar CPCs start to separate. The simplest place to start is a one-click upsell. This isn't about being aggressive or pushy. It's about offering something that genuinely complements the original purchase where the buyer's intent is still high. This can increase AOV without hurting conversion rate, which is the ideal outcome. The next layer is post-purchase. Most brands treat the first purchase as the end of the relationship, but the smartest ones see it as the beginning. A post-purchase email system that educates, reinforces the decision, and introduces the next logical product quietly raises AOV over time without relying on more ad spend. The key to the method is that AOV optimization stops being about individual orders and starts being about lifetime value. When you understand how much a customer is worth over 30, 60, 90-day periods, you can make better decisions about what you're willing to pay upfront, even if the first purchase looks tight on ROAS. And this brings us back to the formula. Higher AOV and higher conversion rate doesn't just improve ROAS on paper. They let you bid more aggressively, stay in auctions longer, and outlast competitors who are optimizing for cheap clicks instead of durable economics. That's why this new method is so good. Earlier, I said the auction alpha formula leaves out one variable that changes how aggressive you can be in the auction without spending more. You see, the formula assumes every click either buys or disappears forever. But most visitors don't buy on the first visit. They browse, they compare, and then they leave. The brands that win are the ones that don't let that be the end of the relationship. The missing variable I mentioned earlier in the alpha auction is email. Email doesn't show up anywhere in the ROAS equation, but it quietly changes everything. It lets you bring non-buyers back over time without paying for another click. And because it doesn't increase your CPC, it effectively raises your conversion rate across the entire funnel. This is why capturing emails isn't just a retention tactic. It's part of your bidding strategy. Email is a cleaning crew that finally gets credit later. Every visitor you bring back later is a value you didn't have to rebuy from the auction. The setup doesn't need to be complicated. You need a simple exit intent pop-up to capture visitors who were already about to leave, and a short email sequence that educates, builds trust, and gives them a reason to come back. Once you layer email on top of the auction alpha, high CPCs stop being scary for a completely different reason. You're no longer paying for a single click. You're investing in a long-term connection where you can provide continued value to customers. Google Ads has a lot of new settings today that you're probably missing in your campaigns, which is costing you money. Watch this next video to get my full Google Ads tutorial for Shopify covering every campaign type and account setting that actually drives sales all in one video.